I'm Rebecca Morgan. I'm your host today, so let's get started. Let me introduce our expert today, Roberta Guise. Roberta is an award-winning marketer and founder of Guise Marketing and PR. She advises successful women and men on how to become thought leaders in their field of expertise and guides small business owners and nonprofits on how to be extraordinarily visible and sharpen their marketing edge. She's the founder and leader of the Thought Leading Symposium for Women, which will be held February 24th through 26th in San Francisco. Thanks for being with us today, Roberta.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Let's start by talking about the term thought leadership. We hear it a lot these days. So what do you mean when you refer to thought leadership, and specifically what do you mean about thought leadership for women?
Well, Rebecca, let's start with a compare and contrast. I've noticed lately that some people use the terms thought leadership and expert interchangeably. Now, they are related because an expert is someone who knows their topic and they're darn good at it. A thought leader, on the other hand, has breakthrough ideas. So there really is a difference between a thought leader and an expert. Thought leaders are deeply knowledgeable people who change the way we think about our lives. And we find out about their ideas and they influence us because we believe in what they're saying. Now, I should point out that being a thought leader is more than about making money or doing well in your profession. It's about making a difference by adding your voice and ideas to the important conversations that affect our lives. Essentially, you're on a mission to really change the way people think. Now, I would say it's the same for women as it is for men, and that wasn't a trick question. It's the same, except that we're not used to as many women's voices being influential. You know, if you think about whose voices you hear, mostly the people we're listening to, people, authors, people on TV, on cable, they're men's voices, policymakers, mostly men's voices. And as more women enter the pipeline of authors and influential voices, it won't seem so odd.
As I quickly think about who I've seen or read about recently, you're right. It's predominantly men, so I think we do need more women's voices. But where are you seeing these thought leaders? Is it just in business or is it beyond?
Oh, it's really beyond. There are no boundaries or factors limiting where thought leaders can come from. We're going to see them in areas such as economics, science, business, the public sector, education, healthcare, technology, finance, engineering, and even in math. They're leading thinkers or go-to authorities in all segments of society. Some public names, and I do need to mention some male names for the reasons we've just stated, are Paul Krugman in economics. Then we have Susie Orman in personal finance. Psychologist Daniel Goleman and his emotional intelligence franchise comes to mind. And then we have social scientist Rianne Eisler's caring economics. That's her thought leading idea. In fact, Eisler wrote 2 groundbreaking books that you may have heard of. The first one was The Chalice and the Blade, and more recently she wrote The Real Wealth of Nations. Now in business we have luminaries such as Rosabeth Moss Kanter, Jim Collins, Margaret Wheatley, Seth Godin. It's a very long list that we can break down into the smallest of segments. And the good news is that in each segment there's an opportunity for a few individuals to rise to the top as one of the leading go-to authorities.
Makes sense. Now, it seems like it would be a lot of effort to put yourself out as a thought leader. So why would any of our listeners, especially women, undertake such an effort?
Rebecca, that's such a good question. If you're really passionate about what you do and you want to make a difference, it makes sense to consider putting everything you've got into spreading your ideas as broadly as possible. So let's look at the 4 parts of this diagram. At the top, you'll see that we have influencer. Now, as we mentioned earlier, thought leaders have ideas that influence us. That means they change the way we think. Now, think about that for a moment. Your ideas can be so well accepted that people quote you and reference you and turn to you as the person with the final word. So as a thought leader, you are by definition an influencer. Let's go now to the right at 3 o'clock to recognizable brand. And let's go back to Daniel Goleman and his emotional intelligence franchise. The concept that his brand stands for has been so widely talked about and adopted, the concepts, excuse me, that most people in the business community know about him. And over the years, he's built a complete empire around that particular idea of emotional intelligence. So moving around here, this circle to prestige and profits, when other influential people seek you out, you can't help but feel good about it. And why not? We all have a need to be acknowledged, and I'd say that's a nice little side benefit. In terms of profits, when others refer to you as a thinker because you're contributing important ideas, you'll find that the greater the recognition, the greater the financial reward. Now, the item at 9 o'clock, leave a legacy of ideas, is really the big picture piece of this. Your legacy of ideas tells the story of where you've made a difference, how you've changed people's minds, and what you've made them do differently. Now, remember, this change can take place in the slimmest or narrowest of places. So changing the world is definitely a bit-by-bit proposition. And your question, why a woman in particular should undertake an effort, I can't imagine why she wouldn't want all of this for herself, and especially the big picture piece of it.
I can see it really is both personally rewarding as well as you're making the world a better place. You're having an influence that's going to last way beyond your physical presence on this planet.
Yes, you know, and they sometimes say, well, talk about changing the world as making the world a better place. It might be a cliche, but it really, the people who do make serious change have that vision and that passion first. Has to start from somewhere.
Okay. All right, let's talk about what it takes to be a thought leader, because it doesn't seem like it's easy. So step us through that.
And I think we advance to the next slide because we have the 3 circles. There we go. So to become a thought leader, you must have experience, expertise, and passion. And that's enveloped by an insatiable drive to make a positive impact on the world. And even if, as we said earlier, your piece of the world is a narrow niche. I advise that you get to know as much as possible about your field and the areas that it touches. It really pays to be a ferocious learner and always be curious. And people who know me know that I have many books on a wide range of topics because I can't help my own curiosity. So become incorrigibly curious is my guidance here. And you know, here's a goodie. Something you run across today that seems insignificant could well be a valuable insight that you can use tomorrow. So let's look at how you'll recognize your own thought leadership when you trip over it, so to speak. Let's take a look at this arrow. Near the tail is where most good business people are. So they're great at what they do, and they're also operating in a highly competitive arena. As you move up the arrow and you develop ideas and consistently write about them, you create branded products and other offerings that people value, and now you're called on rather than you having to put yourself more out there. People start coming to you because they find out about you. You're represented on the arrow as being distinctive, or perhaps having some distinctive ideas. Going all the way to the head of the arrow, where we have thought leadership, that's the breakthrough zone. And this is likely to happen when you write a book that's widely accepted and talked about, or you create a process that businesses readily adopt, and businesses talk about it. You get called on to keynote important meetings again and again, and you get widely quoted in the media. That's yet another yardstick of You'll know it when you trip over it.
So, Roberta, I can hear people thinking, well, yes, I want to be a thought leader, but gosh, it takes a lot of work, and I'm not sure if I have the qualifications. So what does it take to become a thought leader?
Okay, and we have our next slide, which is the traits and characteristics. So, Rebecca, that really is an excellent, another excellent question. So I want to say no, not everyone can become a thought leader. Then I think, well, okay, well, yes, anyone who can adopt certain traits and characteristics can become one. And the true answer lies somewhere in between. And of course that means, and if there are any consultants on the line, it depends. So there are some traits that without them, thought leadership just won't happen, plain and simple. And what I'm about to give is a partial list, but these to me are the top items. You must have a thick skin, because there are people who are going to cut down your ideas and criticize you and have the potential to really make you feel rotten. However, if you can be a contrarian and really embrace that, you're likely to get much more attention. As we said a bit earlier, you must have a passion to want to change how people think, because this is something that you're going to be in for the long haul. This is not a temporary assignment. You must be willing to write, repeat, write, and repeat, write again about your ideas. That's W-R-I-T-E. And with all the different social media platforms available, thankfully, we don't have to rely any longer on print publications to publish our work. We can be our own publishers and curate our own ideas. And we do this ourselves through blogging in particular, and also through postings to LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, the top 3 social media platforms today. Another trait is that you must be able to talk about your field with ease. What you know, your ideas just really need to roll off your lips. And you should have a novel idea that no one else has written or talked about in the same way as you do, or a new way of thinking about something that up until your idea came along was considered conventional wisdom. So you don't have to be coming up with something, how should we say, it doesn't have to be Steve Jobsian. You can take something that already exists and present it in a completely new way.
All right, so let's say we think, okay, I fit that list. I can put check marks next to all those things. So if we know we want to advance our thought leadership, how do we go about it if we're starting really from scratch?
Well, you may not be surprised to learn, first of all here, that some people become thought leaders without intending to. They have attention-turning ideas. They're prolific writers in their field. Word gets around. The media can't quote them enough. Their calendar overflows with speaking engagements at important events, and their income skyrockets along with celebrity. I'm sure everybody here knows at least one person like that. And I say, lucky them. The rest of us can use a structure that we can follow, and for that I've developed this 6-step process, which I call the Thought Leader Development System for Women. And please do note that it also works for men. So let's look at how the 6-step system works. A few of the items we touched on earlier, so when they come up again, it'll just be reinforcement. Excuse me. So step 1, define your idea, excuse me again, and write it up. So start by articulating your concept. As we said earlier, your idea can be breakthrough, meaning you're the first person ever to have it, or you can take someone else's concept and put a contrarian twist on it. You can also think in terms of that you want to affect millions of people, or you can think in terms of being a world-class thought leader in a very narrow niche. As you think your idea through, be sure to write down your thoughts. You've got to capture them on a page or on your computer. Describe your idea in detail. And at this point, don't edit. Just let your mind flow. also, when you're in this writing phase, write down how your idea will make people better off. You always have to keep that in your crosshairs, because that's the what's in it for me part of this. Step 2 is develop the brand. So now you've got your idea. With your idea, the branding is how it and you show up. You'll develop a distinctive, what we call look and feel, which includes a graphical icon and words to present your idea, which essentially are no different than how you would brand the rest of your business. Step 3 is where it really starts to get exciting, because now you're going to start building your content, which we also refer to as body of knowledge, and you're going to start distributing your ideas. So you've got your concept, you've branded it, and you're going to start putting your ideas out. As I suggested earlier, you have to write and be a prolific writer. So what can you write? You can write a book, start putting in opinion pieces for your local newspaper. You can come up with white papers or special reports. And if you do none of the above, at least start a blog and blog consistently. People need to be able to access your thinking and know what's on your mind. If you can, create short informational videos and audio podcasts. You can position yourself for high-fee keynotes and presentations. Some of you may want to develop products around your ideas. And for that, then you'll brand those products and package them, price them well, and offer them for sale. If you are writing a book, and by the way, a book can be traditional publisher, it can be self-published, it could even be an e-book. Make chapters of your book available online even while you're writing it to get a little bit of pre-publishing buzz. And if you can, get some pre-release publicity. So step 4, continue to distribute your work. And under this step, you'll actually launch your book if you've written one. And when you launch, as a result, you'll start hearing the media and other influential people referring to you as a thought leader or leading authority, excuse me, or influential thinker. And of course, the more buzz that you get around your book, the more this is likely to happen. So of course, when you hear these descriptions and you know that your tenacity, vision, and ability to do what it takes are paying off. And as a result of that, you're likely to increase your writing and speaking as your ideas become more in demand. So it's a good, it's a good cycle that starts to repeat itself. In step number 5, you're really going to look at how broadly you can get your ideas distributed. The late George Leonard, some of you may have heard of him, often referred to as the granddaddy of the consciousness movement, wrote a wonderful book called Mastery. He was an Aikido black belt, and he said that achieving mastery, and in his case it was a black belt, that achieving mastery is a process, not a destination. So when you think of thought leadership, think of it as a process, not a destination. To stay at the top, this may sound simple, you've got to stay at the top. This means that along with staying fresh in your profession, you consistently write and publish and speak and even reinvent yourself. Which takes us to the final step, step 6, repeat the process. After a year or two with a book, you may have another new idea, or you've had something that you want to add to the original piece. So you put that out, and like I said, you start the entire process again of developing, writing down the idea, articulating it, developing it, and distributing it. Each time you repeat the process, you etch your name deeper in people's minds.
I like how you have really created this step-by-step process, but knowing that they don't necessarily aren't necessarily sequential. Sometimes they overlap, and then, as you say, repeat. It's like shampoo. You know, shampoo, rinse, repeat. So we keep repeating the process as our thought leadership grows.
And actually, I want to say just something very quickly about that particular notion. That was a very clever branding sales strategy by the products industry, probably Procter & Gamble many decades ago, to sell products, because it's completely unnecessary to shampoo your hair twice.
Yes. All right, Roberta, let's talk about some of the more global reasons a woman would want to consider doing the work as a thought leader. As we've talked about, it's not easy. It's not maybe simple to understand, but it's a lot of work involved. So what are some of the bigger picture issues?
The key global reason why women in particular would want to advance their position to thought leader is that all of us really stand to benefit. Let me give you an example. Let's go back to Dr. Riane Eisler and her caring economics. Dr. Eisler argues that unpaid work, such as child care and elder care, and if you think about it, these are functions usually carried out by women, that this unpaid work should be factored for in the nation's GDP. Right now, none of this work is getting counted. If we include activities like this, like these, she says, policy decisions will be quite different from the way they are today. And that would mean we'd have policies that would benefit families and children in a profoundly positive way. So you can see that wanting to make people better off is a pretty big, compelling reason. Now, another global reason, and I call this global, is wanting to lead a fulfilling life. Because to make others better off and for your ideas to continue flow, there's no question that you yourself need to be in a good place.
All right, great. And so then what can our listeners do to step forward to move ahead on their own thought leadership?
Well, if you're ready to focus your efforts on advancing your thought leadership position right now, the first thing I recommend doing is to define your idea, as we discussed in step 1 of the development system. Now, some of you may already have an idea, and if you do, then I suggest putting together an action plan using the 6 steps I outlined here. So if it's already branded, again, you can look at what point in the steps you would be sort of entering the system at. And the third option is to attend the Thought Leadership Symposium for Women, which I'm leading along with you, Rebecca, I'm glad to say. And as you mentioned at the beginning, it starts February the 24th and runs through the 26th. And then we've got 12 monthly group teleconferences that will be part mastermind discussion and part deep dive into a specific topic, and that's all included in the registration. And the reason I wanted the 12 months of follow-up is, you know how we get very excited and jazzed when we go to a conference and we learn so much and we have all these plans and good intentions, and then we get back to our offices, back to our desks, into the daily grind, and stuff gets shelved. With the teleconferences, with an accountability partner that you'll have, it'll be very hard not to continue doing the work. I will be the chief, nudging chief here on this.
I really like the way you've designed that. And let me, I know we're going to open it up for questions, so
well, I just had one more. Couple more points here about this. Yeah, the symposium is going to follow the 6-step thought leader process, and the big takeaway from the symposium is that you will leave with your own custom thought leader development action plan. And if you haven't already been to the website and seen, I'm extremely excited to tell you that Dr. Riane Eisler herself is our special guest speaker at the symposium, and she's going to talk about how she evolved her ideas, including the successes and the challenges, and she's told me she had plenty of challenges that she's had to butt up against. And then she'll lead a discussion on how she developed and wrote her book, The Real Wealth of Nations. And the last quick thing, Rebecca, is I want to mention that we're taking up to only 15 women to ensure everyone gets personalized attention. So if you're interested, please get in touch with me as soon as possible.
Yes, I know that there's only a few slots left, but so let's open it up for questions. If you have a question, you can write it in the question box, and I will voice it for you. Or if you want to ask it yourself, then just put your little hand next to your name on the attendee list, and I will call on you. And while we do that, while we wait for some questions to come in, Roberta, I would like to know why you wanted to do this symposium. I mean, this is, as far as you and I know, the first of its kind. So what motivated you to do all the work that it's taking you to put this together for such an intimate group of women?
Well, for years, it's really been bothering me that there isn't an equal playing field for women. Some people call it, women and girls, and some people call that having, equal access. And I was also very interested in the whole concept of thought leadership, because that is definitely a very big piece of the kind of work I do as a marketing and PR consultant. One day I had an aha moment of taking my passion for helping women in some way and saying, look, if we do this, if we get more women in the pipeline, then we're going to change this status quo of a situation where we have almost 50% of the population being women. But for example, on the op-ed pages, only 16 to 20% of op-eds, position pieces, are submitted by women. So you only have, and you don't even have that amount that are actually represented on the pages, for example. I've been following the top 10 business book lists in the Wall Street Journal week after week after week. 100% of the list is written by men. Tell me why there are no business books by women. It just doesn't make any sense. So this work is designed to change that.
Great. And we only have about a minute and a half left. So Pat wrote in, but let me while I read through her question myself, let me have you quickly answer. What if somebody says, I'm not a thought leader, or I'm a guy and I can't come to the symposium? What could they do to tell other appropriate women about this event?
Well, if you're a guy, well, those are two questions really. If you say that you're not a thought leader, meaning that you have no intention to do this kind of work, I would just hope that you would think of a woman who you think has the potential, or she may have already expressed it, and recommend this to her, that she take a look and see if this could be the right event for her, and that it's the right time. And for men, I do work. My clients are evenly balanced between men and women, and the only reason I'm putting this out to women is that I felt that I've got this analogy. When you're baking, it's a scientific process. You take your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients. You mix your wet separately, and you mix your dry separately, and then you throw them back together again. So if you imagine that this work that I'm doing with women on their thought leadership is taking the ingredients and mixing them out separately and then putting them back together. So it's only a sort of a temporary separation, if you will, so that they can work on this sort of unfettered by other voices that sometimes they feel could get in the way. And women just have this tendency, and I think that it would be the case with men as well. When we're in a gender-specific environment, we tend to open up a little bit more to our peers.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Roberta, we've come to the end of our time. We promised we would only keep people a half an hour, so we need to close it. And if you asked a question that we didn't answer verbally, Roberta will get back to you by email. We'll copy and paste that so that she knows what your question was and who asked it. And so we appreciate everybody listening to Roberta's thoughts on thought leadership. And Roberta, do you have a final comment before we let everybody go?
I just want to say thank everybody for listening in. And I do hope that if you were just curious about what thought leadership is and whether it can apply to you, that you do give it some serious thought because I believe that those of us who go into this with intentionally can really make a very big difference for the better in the world. So go out and do it. And yep, thank you.
And we hope to see you in February, everybody. Okay, over and out. Talk to you later. Bye.